Today I'm going to speak about digital media and the ways that they have improved quality of life, which can essentially be defined as the basic standard of living that members of a certain group or community can expect to have. The advantages of digital media are particularly apparent when you look at three principal aspects of life that I'm going to be focusing on, and those are health, networked individualism, and culture. So first, let's talk about health. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention began collecting data about health-related quality of life in 1993 as an addition to ongoing research that they were doing in regards to behavioral risks, nutrition, and national health. Participants ages 12 and up provided qualitative insight into their own perceived well-being, and other questions were framed to describe how many days in the last month that the participant had felt they experienced physical or emotional impairment. And although their perceived health has worsened over these years slightly, digital media have drastically improved the way that medical professionals and citizens tackle the issue. In 1947, the World Health Organization implemented an epidemiological information task force in order to track communicable diseases and relay information versus automated telex services to prevent the spread of plagues and so forth. The WHO has relied on mass communications for some 60 years now, and in that time they've had an undeniable impact on raising the global quality of life. For example, the smallpox eradication program was initiated in 1958. 21 years later, smallpox was globally eradicated and the initiative was declared a success. So a feat like this simply isn't possible without digital media, of course, because as we're all aware, territorial borders don't limit communicable diseases. It takes communication and collaboration globally from all of the countries involved. So in this example, we see a global initiative in which developed countries assisted developing countries by supplying them with vaccines and funds. So throughout digital media, mass communication, and global collaboration, organizations such as the WHO collectively raise the quality of life for all of humankind. As technology advances, we find new ways to increase our quality of life, and the Rainey article about Trudy and Peter illustrates just how big our social networks really can be, much larger than we could imagine. Which brings me to my next topic, networked individualism. The gist of this is that we no longer live as groups and communities, but rather as individuals who are parts of many groups. When networks such as Facebook or LinkedIn show you a mutual friend or connection, it highlights this degree of separation between you and paves the way for easier contact with them. It's also easier than ever to keep in contact with friends, acquaintances, and loved ones. And personally, I have family in Arizona, Germany, Singapore, but none in Cincinnati. I recall a time in my childhood where my mom would pay 10 cents a minute to speak to my grandma in Germany, and these days they're able to speak virtually face-to-face for free over Skype. And that's just one of a few new conveniences of digital media. Navigation apps like Google Maps use our mobile device signals in order to determine how much traffic there currently is at any given location. Websites like Glassdoor and Salary.com have given employees a competitive advantage when negotiating salary due to the transparency. Sources like PolitiFact or even Twitter users come together to fact-check politicians in real time as they debate on television. You can even determine whether a company is legitimate or a scam by Googling it. These conveniences sometimes go unappreciated, but they're constantly saving us time, money, and energy, all while keeping us informed and connected. Finally, the last advantage that I want to address is the impact of digital media on culture. According to a study titled The Impact of the Digital Technology on Culture by J.G. Shrikant of St. John's University in New York, culture is formed through communications and interactions among people. Further, culture is not stagnant. Rather, it is constantly changing and evolving through interactions among people within a culture and with those of other cultures. Living in a so-called global village makes physical distance irrelevant. A simple yet prevalent example is coffee, which I'm using because it's my own area of expertise. And according to The World of Caffeine by Weinberg and Beeler, people living in the Ethiopian region of Africa around the 17th century were actually the first to consume that native plant. And around that time, the 17th and early 18th centuries, It was mostly consumed by Islamic regions as part of religious practices. And avid coffee drinkers are well aware that the plant just simply doesn't grow well everywhere in the world. So, as Americans, pretty much all of the coffee that we drink is imported. A study published by Minto in 2015 found that cold brew coffee sales actually grew 115% between 2014 and 2015. And as someone with years of barista experience, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that I'd never heard of cold brew before Starbucks launched it in their stores. Starbucks is a distinctly American company, and as consumers, we eagerly buy into pretty much whatever it is that they're trying to sell us. The next big product launch for Starbucks is Nitro Coffee on tap, and although Caribou Coffee and Stumpton Roasters have already served Nitro Coffee in their stores, I'm curious to see how trends will be affected when it starts being heavily marketed by a global giant such as Starbucks. Overall, digital media and innovation go hand in hand. When paired with clever marketing, organizations like Starbucks can effectively shape our culture. At the end of the day, digital media changes our lives for the better, whether it's in the form of medical advances, being able to stay in touch with friends or distant relatives, or forcing competition between businesses that results in shared culture and superior products.